This computer. Yeah, we're doing super cash, Kate. Again, good evening, everyone. We know we're among tax season, and again, we want to make sure that each of you know what the heck you're doing when it comes to our taxes. So, of course, my name is Andrew, director of the Center for Leadership. However, I do not know how to do taxes. What I will be doing is using the Zoom platform to share my friends and my family who know what they're doing. And one of my friends is Caitlin. We actually went to Mount St. Vincent together. She is a tax expert. I'm gonna give her that title and she'll go out through her presentation. And of course, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. I'll feed those questions to Kate. But again, we want to at least make sure you know what you're doing when we're here in tax season. So Kate, appreciate you as always, and then you get started.
Thanks, Drew.
Yep.
Um, Hi guys. So yeah, your professor said, which is crazy to me. Um, I'm Kate, so I have a little slideshow. I'm gonna present it. You would think as an accountant I'd be somewhat technologically savvy, but I'm not. Okay. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, all good.
Okay, awesome. So today I just want to go over a little bit about preparing your taxes, right? So it's going to be a very high level overview, nothing crazy, but just somewhere to get you started. So I don't know how to do this. There we go. So there's a couple of things I want to touch. So I'm just obviously going to introduce myself. Some key watch out items, where to file if you're filing on your own. If you need an accountant, we can talk about that, and then some final tips and takeaways. So to introduce myself first, so I am Caitlin Vinch. I recently got married a year ago, so my name was McEwen previously. I graduated with your professor in 2019 from, at the time, College of Mount St. Vincent. After college, I ended up landing a job in public accounting. So I was at Witham Smith and Brown where I interned for about 4 years. And then I recently transitioned about 8 months ago to the corporate sector. So I currently work as a tax analyst for Johnson & Johnson, which is really cool. And I also recently opened my own accounting business. So I am an owner and partner of Vinch Accounting Services. So we do pretty much everything and anything, which is kind of cool. So that's a little bit about me. So let's get down to the nitty gritty, right? So some key watch outs, basically what to include as a student, um, in college, doing taxes is never easy and they don't exactly teach you how to do this. So these are just some key things that I could think of that you might have as a student. So if you're working, you're going to have a W-2. So this is where you're going to have all of your income listed out that you've made for the year from your employer. So say, for example, you are a tutor in the library at school or at your university. They will issue you a W-2 with X amount of income that they've paid you for the year. Other things that everybody would have, right? Medical expenses and charitable contributions. So medical expenses are anything that you would pay as a copay from an office visit, or even prescriptions, if you wear glasses, stuff like that. Charitable contributions are anything that you pay to a 501c3. So for example, I know when I was in school and your professor created this wonderful organization, so BU Stay True. And then another friend of mine created the Moment of Magic. So if you were to donate, buy a t-shirt, sponsor something, that would be a charitable contribution that you can deduct on your taxes. Other things that are more student specific. So if you have student loans and you're paying interest on your student loans while you're still in school, you could be issued a 1098. This will come directly from your loan holder. So if, for example, I still have outstanding loans from the federal government that are held by Aidvantage. So they issue me a 1098 every year, still to this day, because you never get rid of your student loans. But they issue me a tax form that basically says, this is how much interest you've paid us. This is how much is deductible. Throw it in your taxes. So that's pretty cool. And then something simple. So most likely you have a bank account, right? You have a checking account, you have a savings account. Um, you may get a 1099 interest statement from a bank if you've received interest on the balance that your bank holds that's over $10. So anything over $10 that you've received from your bank, you'd get a 1099 for. So these are just some common things that you may have. This is obviously not everything because there is so much to talk about when it comes to taxes. But these are some key things that I think each and every one of you may very well easily possess for your taxes. So now you know what to look for. Where the heck do you get started, right? Where do you file? What do we do now? So if you're looking for an easy, quick option that's not necessarily super expensive, but you can do on your own and with minimal information, your best bet from a professional standpoint is either TurboTax, H&R Block, or TaxAct. These are websites that you can go onto that walk you through the step-by-step process to get your taxes done. These are self-service websites, so they're very easy. You literally upload, say, your W-2. It will fill out everything for you. It's very nice, it's quick, and it's easy. If you have something that's more complicated, you can still use something like H&R Block and TaxAct. I'm so sorry, my dogs are going crazy. So if you hear them in the background, I apologize. But H&R Block, TaxAct, they are used for both simple and a little bit more complicated. H&R Block in specific has tax professionals that are on hand that you can chat with, like live agents. So that's pretty cool if you have something a little bit more complicated, like you're maybe a little entrepreneur or you have some rental units or something along those lines that you might need a little extra help. And then, of course, if you're going on the more complicated side and you want to make sure everything's right and there's no liability to you, if, say, God forbid, something's wrong, then you would look to find an accountant or a CPA that can help you with your taxes. Next up, so if you need an accountant, right? So there's some key things that I would suggest as a student. If you possess or you have, I would look to at least have a conversation with an accountant. So those things on the left-hand side are pretty much more complicated topics. So if you receive a K-1 from a partnership, meaning you are a partner in, BU State True, you and your Professor Drew, you're 50-50 partners in BU State True. So at the end of the year, whatever income or loss is made from that entity or that partnership is going to be split based off of your ownership. And you're going to pick up a K-1 that gives you your details from that business. That you would have to pick up on your individual return. Something more complicated than the average transaction. So meaning if you have stocks and you sell super complicated stocks that have huge gains and losses and all of these limitations, that might be something that I would highly suggest seeking out an accountant. If you have a rental property, something where you're making income or you have tenants, you're looking at depreciation, definitely on the more complicated side, I would look for an accountant. And anything with foreign activity or crypto is a hot topic in the accounting world. Foreign activity they're really cracking down on. So it's something that you definitely want to see a CPA for. And the crypto is so new. There's so many laws coming out every day. So it's definitely something to get a professional's opinion on. So the average student like yourselves will most likely have a basic return, right? Something easy, something you can prepare on your own with a guided website. So more complicated transactions like we talked about, you would definitely want to get, professional's advice from an accountant, a CPA, somebody who at least knows what they're looking at. So if you do need a CPA or an accountant, right, you would want to get all your paperwork together all in one. You're not going to want to send them individual pieces here and there when they come in. So it's easiest for us to have a client that sends me an entire portfolio, an entire package, even if it's a garbage bag full of papers, I'd rather have it all at the same time. You want to communicate your expectations. So if you say, hey, I really don't want to wait until April 15th to file, you want to get it in sooner, as long as you have all your stuff in, there's no reason that you can't do it as early as the e-filing opens for the IRS, which 9 times out of 10 is either the end of January or even the beginning of February. So if you're one of those people who don't want to wait, you can get it done early. Negotiate pricing. So if you go to, a big four or a huge public accounting firm, 9 times out of 10, their pricing is pretty hard to negotiate. If you were to reach out to someone like myself or somebody who has a small business, most times their pricing may be negotiable based off of what you're looking to get done. And then my last piece of advice, if you're looking for an accountant, is be available, because I can guarantee you we'll have questions for you. We'll want to sit down and want to talk about what you gave us and talk about what we're doing so we're on the same page, right? I don't want to file anything for you if you're not aware of that. And that puts my license at risk if it's something that's incorrect or I misunderstood you. So you want to be available, right? They're also going to ask, if I'm e-filing something for you, you're going to have to sign paperwork. You're going to have to sign and date and all of this other fun stuff, answer questions. So absolutely be available if you're looking to communicate with an accountant. So I know this was really quick, and again, I'm an informal kind of girl. So my final tips and takeaways before we open it up to questions and conversation is really, when you're looking to get all your stuff together, you want to look at your last year's return. So what I mean by that is, if you see that you had interest on your prior year return, you might want to look for a 1099, or you want to come up with the same documentation that you had last year. Because for most people, your yearly information for tax purposes doesn't really change. It's usually the things that change are your medical expenses, your charitable contributions, stuff like that. Your W-2s, as long as you don't change jobs that often, they won't change. You'll have the same information year after year. Where you're filing. So looking at what you have personally for the year will help you decide where you need to file and what you can handle. So if you're comfortable with, a simple W-2, a 1099, and maybe something else, I would wholeheartedly say try to do one room. It's going to be way cheaper, and it's going to take you maybe an hour, not even. So decide whether you want to do it on your own or seek the help of a professional. Now, just some key deadlines, because I know when I was in college, specifically where you guys are right now, they never taught us any of this. So I was reliant on my parents to do my taxes, which now that I am an accountant, it kind of sounds really silly. But I was dependent on my parents to get, my taxes done and figure out, what I needed and all that. So if you have a business, a 1065, a partnership, or an 1120 corporate return or an S corp, you want to file or extend your return by March 15th. So that is coming up soon. If you're an individual, which obviously all of us are, you're going to have to file a 1040. So that filing deadline is April 15th. Now you can either file your return or extend your return by April 15th. Now keep in mind, an extension is not an extension to pay, okay? An extension for your tax return purposes is just an extension of time to file, okay? So if I know that I'm going to owe $1,000 with my tax return, I still have to pay that $1,000 by April 15th, okay? If you don't, you will incur penalties and interest with the IRS, which are never fun to try to get out. Trust me. So then if you do decide to extend your return, for business returns, you have until September 15th, and for personal returns, you have until October 15th. So just some final, going back to what we talked about a little earlier. So you do want to be available and be patient with your accountants. Okay, we are super, super busy during April 15th, and even March 15th, but more so in April. It's a lot, right? We got a lot going on. There's so many deadlines. There's only so many accountants per people in the world. So be patient with us, but also be available. Get your stuff in and filed sooner rather than later. It's going to help us as accountants, and it's going to help you as the taxpayers. You'll get your refunds faster if you're owed money from the IRS. And it'll help, if you casually forget the deadline, because I have done it once or twice as an accountant. It will help minimize any penalties and interest. Just trust me, sooner rather than later. And if you're unsure, reach out to someone. You can reach out to me. I will provide all of you with my contact information. I'm always available. So if you have questions, reach out and don't be afraid. Nobody taught you or me anything when I was in college. So it's always good to have a connection, somebody you can just bounce ideas off of, and questions. So if anybody wants to take down my information, please don't hesitate to email me, call me, text me, send a pigeon. I am here. I know this is super quick and very informal, but I'm open if you guys have questions.
Appreciate you, Kate. Thank you for
Of
that. And again,
course.
to everyone that's here, either we have class together, or I know you personally. Kate's a very good friend of mine. Obviously, we went to school together. So again, use the opportunity that we have in the last 10 minutes to ask any questions you may have. If you have your W-2 in front of you that you got on campus and you're like, what the hell do I do? Feel free to ask some questions about it. Kate, for me, just for reference, and we can get us started with all of you. Obviously, they're gonna have your contact information, but would you recommend for like our college age students to just file online or file in person? Or is that like a thing that doesn't really like matter for our students?
So that's a good question. So I don't think it matters as long as you're comfortable doing it online. It's a step-by-step guided process. So they literally walk you through every possible additive that you may have for your tax return. If you're comfortable, I would say, heck yeah, do it online. It's so much easier. It's cheaper, it's quicker. But if you're not, you want to talk to somebody, maybe you're that person, and that's totally okay. Go in person. H&R Block does great with appointments, and also your small town accountants. Love to have clients come in and sit down and go for coffee and talk taxes because it's the most boring thing to talk about in the world, but we love it. Yeah, so it's really dependent on the student. But my suggestion, if you're looking for quick, easy, you don't really want to get out of your dorm room, online is the way to go.
Cool, appreciate that. So for all of you, remember online is the way to go, as suggested. And of course, be charismatic, be yourself, ask those questions. And as we always talk about, people are always willing to help students no matter what. So no one's ever trying to get one up on you. They're just trying to help you as best as you can. Um,
Absolutely.
had another question. Let me think about it.
Oh, I see hands raised. That's cool.
Go ahead, Pop. Go ahead.
Uh, Good night, Kate. Pleasure meeting you. Thank you for the presentation. It's my second year filing taxes. I think I pretty much have that down pat, but my question has to do with more so the IRS. I'll be transparent. I've been having a little issue when it comes to the ID.gov section, which basically, as you know, they verify your information to be able to access former transcripts and stuff like that, your account transcripts and your returns. Our ADP, the system that our college uses, they only provide the four last socials for your social security. But the IRS, when you're submitting those W-2 forms, they require that your total social security number is shown on the W-2. I also work in HR, and I was trying to access that today, but I was told that no company or employer provides a full social security number on your W-2. So I was wondering, how would I possibly go about doing that? Like that information verified without having to set up an appointment with the IRS to go in person and get that possibly sorted out.
Interesting. I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't think I've ever seen a W-2 that has come to me as an accountant for preparation that didn't have the full social security number of the taxpayer and the like we call it an ETIN or like it's basically an identification number for a company who's paying you. They should definitely be unmasked is what we call it. So they basically mask your sensitive information. So your social, their EFIN numbers for privacy, right? And protection. They don't want somebody to steal your identity. But at the same time, when you're filing your taxes, it definitely should be available in an unmasked version. Now, with something that's online, like an ADP system, there should be a way to select to like view the social security numbers. It might be a little tricky to try and find it on your own. So I don't know if there's a way that you can communicate with maybe ADP to have them print an unmasked version, if that makes sense.
That's good advice, Kate. The ETIN number, that's employee identification number, is that correct? So
Yep.
can you use that as well to
You can use that just to verify the employer. So the social security number that the IRS most likely is looking for is probably your personal social security number.
Yes, definitely. So on our ADP, because even I looked at since I work in the department, I was asking one of the generalists, the professional employees about professional employees on campus, and it still provides that their the last four of their social, just like regular student employees as well. So I was just wondering what was the disconnect with the with our W-2 form. So I guess I can try contacting ADP through the system to try doing that. Thank you for sparking that thought. But other than that, I've
No
been stuck
problem.
myself. I don't know how to attack this.
Yeah, it's the IRS is always fun with what they try to throw at you.
Please,
They're not
don't remind me.
fun at all, unfortunately. So the easiest way I can say to handle that is yes, definitely I would probably reach out to ADP first. Because they're the ones that are most likely generating that report for you. So they would be my first go-to, and then if not, I actually don't know.
No worries. Appreciate you, Nicarama. Arangel, you go next.
Oh no, he asked my questions.
Got you. No worries. I see another one. Kate in the chat. Hey, I have a question. Why is it sometimes I would owe money but can also have a refund? So I guess explaining like the full reason of why we do taxes.
Good question. So, just for a little more background, what do you mean when you say owe money but also a refund? Are you talking about maybe you owe money for federal but you're getting a refund for the state?
That's a good follow-up. Let's see.
So I could probably explain a little bit on that at least. So if that's the case and you're
She
looking
said
at
yes, exactly.
perfect. Okay, cool. We're on the same page. So what happens is a lot of times for federal, you're going to take everything outright. So federal, a lot like think about like laws, right? So anything that's a federal law is trumps everything else, right? And then you have your individual state laws. So they can either add or remove from your federal laws. It's the same concept with taxes. So your federal tax return goes to the IRS, right? So they're the overall governing body. They're going to tax everything you have, from your W-2 income to your interest to you name it, they're going to tax it. Now, you may have a refund for federal, but say you file in New York and you owe money. This is because each state has specific add backs and deductions that you add or deduct on top of your federal. Okay, so meaning, like prime example, I know New York, they have specific rules for depreciation. They have specific rules for a whole lot of stuff. So a lot of times you may have say income or a loss for federal, but you may have to add that back for New York. So for example, if you're filing a business, okay, and you have a piece of equipment that you're depreciating, meaning you're taking a portion of what you paid for it as an expense over a certain period of time. Okay. So for federal, you may be able to depreciate the entire amount of that equipment. But for New York purposes, you can't deduct the entire amount. So they only take a portion throughout a specific amount of time. Okay. So that would be an add back to your New York income. So that may trigger now an amount due for New York, and even though you have a refund for the IRS or for federal, if that makes sense and answers your question. It depends on each state specifically. They all have their little quirks and ins and outs. So it really depends on one, what you have, and two, what the state can deduct. I hope that helps. Okay, perfect.
Appreciate you, Kate. The next one's from Felix. He shared, I learned that if you get a refund, that just means like throughout the year they took too much money. Is that true? And if so, how can all of us minimize a refund or refund, pardon me, how much would we owe?
That's a good question. So it's really hard to gauge on your own, only because the tax rates change so often. If you make over a certain amount of income, you're bumped into a new tax bracket. So you may expect to be in an 18% tax bracket, but you may have made more money this year. Sorry, my phone's going off. I should probably put that on silent because that's rude. You may have made more income during the year than you anticipated, and now you're bumped up into a new tax bracket. There's no easy way to plan that out unless you are on top of it and maybe talking to an accountant. The only thing I can suggest is if you're consistently paying too much money and getting a large refund every year, I would suggest looking into your W-2 deductions, meaning, your W-2 withholdings, meaning if you're an individual and the only thing you have to file is a W-2 and you're getting a huge amount of refunds every year, you may be taking too much of a withholding. The only other thing I can suggest is to look at what you actually have. So a lot of times, maybe, like I said, your W-2 may be withholding too much. You could maybe not be withholding enough for retirement, like 1099-R. It really depends on the situation. It's hard to answer that question 100%, but I hope that helped.
Appreciate that, Kate. Another one that I would like to ask, for people who file their taxes that you've seen throughout your time, what is like a really like common mistake people make on their taxes that kind of affect their refund or just the tax process in general?
Oh, good question. So on the flip side, right? So when people owe too much money, a lot of times, and I've seen this happen so many times to too many good people, you're not anticipating how much income you can make throughout the year. And they end up owing, say, $40,000 in taxes. And then you're like, whoa, what the heck? What the heck happened? I would want to look at, and I do this personally for me and my husband, because my husband is a wild card. I never know what's going to happen with him. I look at it quarterly. So every 3 months I sit down and say, okay, how much money did we essentially make in the last 3 months? And I say, okay, if we made way more than I'm anticipating, what I'll do is I'll actually make an estimated tax payment to the IRS. And that will essentially lower how much tax I'll owe in April. That way, if I know I'm making way more than I'm anticipating, I have at least some kind of safeguard. So I'm not at the end of the year owing thousands of dollars. That's something that I've seen happen way too often. People don't necessarily think about their taxes until it's like April 15th. On the other side, I have seen a lot of people who get refunds and are looking for a paper check. My biggest suggestion, if you have a bank account, ask that the refund go directly to your bank account. This will minimize you having to wait weeks, even months for a refund check. Direct deposit is your best friend, especially when it comes to the IRS. It is the quickest way to get your money back in your hand, and you definitely don't want them holding onto it too long. So definitely direct deposit, and if you're making too much income, look into estimated tax payments.
Appreciate that, Kate. And yeah, I definitely recommend that as well. Direct deposit, that's the way to go. If there's any more questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. If and when you do that, Kate, if you could can you put up your screen for your contact information?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And then
And I was
everyone
gonna
who's
say,
here, take a picture, whatever you need.
Drew, you have
The slides.
the slides too, so you can share those if you want with whoever
Thank you.
needs them. And also, I know we had talked about doing potentially like a working session. So if you're still interested in that and you guys are all interested in that, I can make myself available for 2, 4, whatever hours. And if you want to hop on, ask me questions about your taxes as you're doing them, walk through them, I can make myself available for you guys. So just if that's something you could be interested in, let me know.
That's
I'm
love.
here to help.
Appreciate that, Kate, for real. Thank you. I'll definitely set up a time. Either it'll probably be in the evening if that continues to work best for you. And our students, they'll be able to hop on. I know most of them are resident assistants. If you remember that vibe, they sit at the desk, they check in people. So they'll definitely be available to do it. And we want to get this done before April 15th, right?
Yeah, definitely before April 15th.
All right, bet. So we'll make sure we'll keep that in our back of our minds. But for all of the students that joined in today, appreciate y'all, taking the step forward to get these taxes done. And Kate, to you, sharing your time, showing love, and providing this valuable information for our students. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks guys. Thank you guys so much for having me. I know, like we talked about earlier that when we were in college, we didn't have this kind of stuff. It's strictly about your major
Facts.
and what you want to do with your degree. It's never real life skills. So yeah, any way you can help out. I know this is not an easy topic. So
We changed it again, Kate. Appreciate you. Everyone.
trying one student at a time,